So clicks,
Yes,
not code.
that is correct. So, and welcome back, everybody. We're just doing a little review of some homework here. And as far as the automation tool, I forgot to hit the record button, but we were looking at flows, and the question was in regards to flows. And I mentioned that while flows are a part of the automation suite, we're not going to spend a bunch of time on them because they could easily take a year to truly understand. It's a complex tool. So what we'll do, instead of trying to become experts at it in a very short period of time, is we will learn the keywords for the exam. So if you see the question, you'll know what the answer is. Because that's really everybody's goal here, I think, is to get certified admin and app builder. So you're not going to be a flow expert, but you'll get the question right.
Right.
So we said declarative, and then somebody said, say that again.
Non-coding, I think he said.
Non-code. So what that really means is
it's not Apex.
Not Apex. So if you see Apex or Visualforce in this answer set here, you know that you can just cross that one off. What's our next keyword?
Guide.
Guide users or guide customers through a process. This is always what? It's always a flow. If you see the word wizard, and they're talking about automation and not the import wizard, but if you see the term wizard, that's the same thing as saying this. So either of those keywords there point to the flow builder. If you're collecting information from a user, collecting customers, collecting information from a customer, all of that would be the flow builder. And then here's another one, and we haven't actually covered these yet, so I'll hold off on these until we actually cover our automation in class. But hopefully that answers your question on flows.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
Anybody else have any homework questions? You will notice if you're a subscriber to my YouTube channel, I put up the last few classes. It was like 2 or 3. I had some issues as far as Zoom and figuring out, because I set them to record on my computer. It's a long story, but it's all handled now. So they're up and in order. I think we're on, this will be class 13. So that's about 26 hours in. This class is usually 40 to 48 hours long. So we're getting there. Any questions before I continue?
Right. I don't know if I missed last Thursday session, but did you notice that the summer release, they have this minimal access Salesforce profile feature?
Oh, they do?
Yeah. So I can see.
So they're basically doing what I've done in class?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Well, they just have a very stripped down standard profile, I guess. Is that what they're doing?
That's it, right? And so just copy off of that. Just basically going through the same things that you've talked to us about it, as far as giving everybody access to everything and then having to scale back. Now they're giving you the ability to use a new profile called minimal access to start with, and it's bare bones, and you build upon it.
I like it, because it just reinforces everything that I've been saying for years. But you'll notice that you don't really hear people talk about this as well. You don't hear people saying, hey, we turn everything off. But it is the best practice. You can't do it in every situation, but you can do it in most. And if you can really sell that, what you end up with from the client side, what you end up with there is you end up with a very clean, effective, fast user interface that acts kind of like a wizard, where you're guiding your users through the process. Maybe not with flows, maybe so, but we still are using our processes embedded properly. We're restricting access and permission, and then giving additional access and permission as needed as we move through the plunge. And eventually what I find happens is we don't need, like this last implementation I did, it was a relatively simple process, just one product and service. So it wasn't a lot of record types or anything, but you know, I went in for one meeting. It was probably a 3 or 4 hour meeting. I talked with everybody on the team, asked the right questions, started off with a very restricted profile, and had everything set to it's the OWD setting private. And by the time we got through, there were 0 issues. I mean, I had changed the name of a field or add a pick list value here and there, but and you can do this with every org that you work in. This isn't something that's going to be one way for one organization and another way for another. It really should be done this way all the time because they love it. It's so intuitive, especially the mobile side of things. The alternative is you take it out of the box, everything's read write, you're using a standard profile, your process is some standard process, you didn't even put your business process into Salesforce. No wonder people hate the platform. So all of this is going to really help you if you start building applications. This is going to set you ahead of the curve because the Trailhead doesn't teach this.
Yeah.
Trailhead at all.
Can we have multiple orgs for one user ID? Or
That's
is
a
it
good
just one?
question. How would you do that?
I was trying to do it. I don't know how to do it. I know when I sign in, it just goes to the default org.
Well, think about the key points of the user detail record. So if we just kind of go through those key points that we've been discussing. One of the things that we saw is what was the difference between a username and an email?
The email associated to one org, is it?
No, the email. So I have probably 200 orgs that use this email. But what has to be different for every single org?
Oh, the username.
Right? So the email is where your login credentials come to. It has to be a real email address. The username is unique across the entire ecosystem. So there's not another person on earth that can have the same username as you.
Okay.
It doesn't have to be real, but it has to be in the form of an email.
Yeah.
So you could have multiple orgs feeding to this email, right? But the username for each org would be different. If you're logging in and it's defaulting to an org, then you need to close your browser and start over fresh. When you have more than one org that you work in, it likes to default to the last one you were working in. And your cache will keep that in the browser. So close the browser up, open a new window, and do it that way. You should be able to log into a separate org.
Okay. With that username, with the unique username. Okay.
Yeah, every org you're in will have a unique username, but I can have the same email for every org that I'm in, right?
Okay, that makes sense. Okay. Thanks.
Nope, no problem. That's good. So then last week we talked about master detail and lookup relationships. Can anyone tell me the key points of the lookup relationship? Anybody?
One to many.
We had a lookup relationship. That meant it was what? Parent-child, right? And one to many. Where's the field go?
On the child.
On the child. It's a loose relationship, meaning what?
Each has its own owner.
Each one has an owner, so then what controls security?
The owner.
The owner of each record. What happens if I delete the parent record?
Child is orphaned.
Child becomes orphaned. Can I pull information from the parent to the child?
Yes.
Using what?
Class object formula.
Can I do those in schema?
No.
Nope. Got to use the object manager for those. Can I do this? Child back to the parent?
No.
No. Master detail relationship, key points.
Ryan, in regards to the parent-child, I mean, I guess you have the roll-up scenario where you can take child records and sum it up into the parent, right?
Can I do that with a lookup?
I don't know.
So I got a parent object and I got a child object. And there's a lookup relationship that we created last class between the two. We literally took the lookup relationship data type, dropped it on the child object, and called it parent record name. See it right there? So now I have a lookup relationship. So we said the key points were you've got a one-to-many. This is for a lookup. Where's the field go? It goes on the child. It's a loose relationship, meaning what?
You can delete the parent and still have the child.
Well, each one has an owner.
Mm-hmm.
So security is controlled by the owner of each record, just like our normal matrix. What happens if I delete the parent record?
Child's orphaned.
Child becomes orphaned. I can pull information from the parent to the child using a cross-object formula, which we did. We created a formula field called region/zone, and it brought whatever value we chose for region and whatever value we chose for zone, put a literal slash between them, and returned as a text data type. So that's a cross-object formula. I cannot, however, do this. I cannot put a roll-up summary field data type on a lookup relationship parent. It won't let you. So if I grab this roll-up summary and try and drop it on the parent, see, you must have a master detail relationship in place before that exists, before you can use it. So that was one of our key points of the lookup relationship, was that we could not use that roll-up summary. Then last week we did master detail objects. So I'll pull these. These were just variable objects for those of us that weren't here, by the way. The reason people don't understand relationships is because folks try and teach it with a case study. It doesn't matter what the tables are called. It doesn't matter whether you're selling nuclear weapons or umbrellas. What matters is the physics of the relationship data type, regardless of what things are called or what you're trying to accomplish. The physics are the same. So I teach it with like a variable mindset to where we have a master object, which could be anything. It doesn't matter what the name is. And then we had a detail object. And then once again, for this one, we had master detail. What were our key points here? Master and detail, which means one-to-many. Where's the field go? On the detail. We named it master record name. It's a strong relationship. What does that mean?
Delete the parent, delete the child, right?
Well, only the master has an owner. Notice that there is no owner on the detail record. So security is controlled by the owner of the master record. So if I delete the master record, what happens to the detail?
Deleted.
It's deleted using what's known as cascading delete. Can I pull information from the master to the detail?
Yes.
Yep, with a cross-object formula, just like before, I could put region and zone on master and pull it down with a formula. But since I have a master detail relationship in place, I can also aggregate from the detail back to the master using a what?
Lookup.
Nope.
Roll-up summary.
Roll-up summary. What can I do with it?
Add.
Count, sum, min, and max. Where's the field go? Field goes on the master. And you can see it here. Number of detail records. We put a field on the master that counts the number of detail records. So if you want, go back and watch last week. We deep dove into this. It's, you know, you'll get a way better understanding if you do that. So the next part of our process here, oh, and there's another piece to master detail as well that we discussed. So we said if I have a standard object and a custom object, and I've got a custom and a standard, and I got a standard and a standard, and I've got a custom and a custom. We said the key point to understand here is that standard objects must have an owner. They cannot exist without an owner. So in lookup relationship data types, there's no issues here. If these are all lookup relationship data type fields, they both have an owner, don't they? Because it's a lookup.
Yeah.
They both have an owner because it's a lookup. However, if we're talking about a master detail, can I do this one?
No.
Yes, you can, because the standard object must have an owner. See? And it can because it's the master. Whereas the opposite, can you do a custom to a standard?
No, because the standard has to have an owner.
That's right. Standard objects must have an owner. So in master detail relationships, you can't do this. What about this one? Standard to standard.
Yes.
Nope. Standard objects must have an owner. See? This is the detail. This is the master side of the record. This is the detail side of the record. Down
Oh, you can
here.
only have one owner of the detail.
Well, the detail record never has an owner.
The master
By
has
nature.
the owner.
But standard objects must have an owner. So what will happen is if you try to create a master detail relationship between two standard objects, it's just, I'll do contacts and accounts, for instance. So see how these are both standard objects? They both must have an owner. So if I try to put a master detail relationship data type on the contact, it won't let you. That's the reason why. It must have an owner.
Okay.
See what I mean?
Yeah.
So what would the relationship be called then from account to contact?
What would what? This relationship is a lookup. And you're always going to use a lookup 95% of the time. There's only 2 reasons to use master detail. Does anybody remember? Think about the differences. We're talking about a lookup relationship, one to many. Where does the field go? On the child, right?
So I guess one would be where you have to have your child needs to be custom, right?
Well, cascading delete is one reason. So if you're talking about a master in detail and you want the detail records to be deleted if the master record is deleted, that's one reason. The other reason is roll-up summary.
Okay.
See what I mean? That's the only reasons to ever use master detail.
Right. Yeah, it makes sense.
Otherwise, if you create master detail relationships, there's a number of things that can happen that ain't good. For instance, you can inadvertently create what we call a many-to-many relationship with a junction object. So I can have a master and a detail, and then another master. And then if you have 2 master detail relationships in this configuration, if this happens, you can think about this like our drawings. If we're talking about master detail, it's one to many. Where's the field go? On the detail. It's a strong relationship, meaning what?
Delete.
Only the master has an owner.
Yeah.
What happens if I delete the master?
Details deleted.
Even if there is another master on the other side, it will still delete that record. We could use a cross-object formula this way if we wanted. We could also do a roll-up summary this way, where we can roll up summary, count, sum, min, and max, where the field goes on the master. And the same thing over here. It's one to many. Where's the field go? On the detail. It's a strong relationship, meaning what? Only the master has an owner. So if I delete the master, what happens to the detail? It's also deleted. I could use a cross-object formula here, And I could do a roll-up summary in the other direction.
So in this case, you could have two different owners, right? Because you have two different.
Well, it doesn't matter who owns what. If you delete either master record, the detail will cascade delete. So what I'm telling you is if you inadvertently were, because you're using a lot of master detail relationships because you don't know the difference, right? So this is what happens when inexperienced admins start to use the master detail relationship because they think it sounds cooler, or they try to read up on it and it doesn't make any sense. So they're just guessing and saying, oh, this seems like the one, right?
But the one on the left will have different detail records than the one on the right.
No, it's the same detail record.
It's the same, but different owners.
Well, let's build this. You'll see it better if we actually just build this thing. It's called a many-to-many with a junction object. So I'm going to create 3 objects here. I'm going to call it master object 1. And then I'm going to create another one called master object 2. Then in the center, I'm going to create a 3rd object. I'll call it the junction object. And keep in mind, it doesn't matter what these things are called. The physics are the same, no matter what we're doing, right? So this could be any 3 objects. But what can happen is if I create a master detail relationship where the junction is the detail of master 1, where am I going to put my master detail relationship field? In both cases, right? They both go on the detail, in this case, the junction. So I'm going to call it
Hey, Ryan, when you're done with this, could you build out an example of how, like in our GenWhat org, they would use what you're currently describing? Because I'm a little unclear as to what you're doing right now.
Well, it doesn't matter the case study here, right? It could be anything. What I'm saying here is it doesn't matter the reason for this configuration. This configuration works exactly the same no matter what you're doing. It's X1, X2, and Y1, right? They're both going to have the same related list. So 2 masters with the same detail. That's just going to be the name, and that's going to look up to master record 2. See, this configuration right here, that's the danger zone. See it? Because what will happen is you'll be building something, and if you don't know what you're doing, you start creating these master detail relationships. And next thing you know, you have inadvertently created this, and you don't even know you did it. So since we built this thing in schema, what are the limitations of schema?
You have to create your own page layout, right?
Well, we need what?
Well, as you say, you need tabs.
Tabs, page layout, field level security, and cross-object formulas. Those are the limitations of schema. So I built this in schema, so I'm going to need to go create my tabs. It's the same every time. You know, it doesn't matter. It's the same process every time. It does not matter what you're doing. And I know it's hard to see it until you actually build it. So I'm going to search tabs and setup. Being super slow at the moment. There we go. And I'll go to tabs. I'm going to create a tab for each object. And we did a bunch of this last week. So master object 1. tab, hidden for everybody except for my admin, because this is just like an example. And then I'm just going to put it in my Lightning sales application. Next tab, I'll do the master 2. Hidden for everyone. Give it to the admin. Put it on my sales app. Save. Third tab, junction object. Hidden for everybody. These are just tab settings on each profile. Sales app. All right, tabs are created. What are the other limitations of schema?
Page layout.
Page layout. So I'm going to grab each object, go to my page layout, set it up just like I've done for all of my other ones. I'm going to do this. I'm not going to do this how I normally would because we're not going to use it again. But normally I would override my classic publisher actions, override my mobile and Lightning experience actions, clean all those up, then do my buttons. But for our purposes, I don't have any fields I need to add. I'd probably pull these that I don't need. And then pull any sections that aren't being used. And then related lists. Make sure you choose your related list. Well, which one do we want? Well, the junction object. Because that's our detail or our child record. Save. There's my page layout for the master record 1. Master object 1. Now I'm going to do the same thing for master 2. Page layout. Starting at the very top. Do my publisher actions, my mobile and Lightning experience actions, my buttons. Then I'm down to the details section. I'm going to look at the fields that are there, remove any sections that I don't need. I'm going to save a little time here and just go right to related lists. And that one also has the junction object as the related list. Now I can go back in and do my junction object. As far as I could do that through the object manager or schema. I'll just do object manager this time. Oops. Go into my page layout. I think schema is a little quicker. Junction object. Looking at fields, I want to make sure there aren't any fields I need. Well, the field that got added is, they're automatically added. See? Because they have to exist. There is no owner on the junction record. So we should be good. There shouldn't be any related lists I need to add. We're in good shape. Save. Now I'm going to go into my app and take a peek. All right. So I'm going to create a record for master object 1. This is my first master. We'll call it that's going to be my first master. And then from the related list, I'm going to create one new junction record. Oh, and I also need to create another record. So my other master would need to be assigned as well. So I'm just going to create master record 2. All right. So after all that, what do we got going on? Well, if you look at master record 1 and you look at related, there is one junction record. See it? If I go to master record 2, there is also related that junction. So if everybody could, let's try and build this thing. I know I went fast, but I want you to get the muscle memory before we start building our app. Better to do it here than to screw it up during the app building portion of the class, right? So I'm going to put this up in Schema so you can see it. If anybody needs any help, please let me know. It'd be great for the recording. If you wanted to have me walk you through this. If anybody's totally lost right now, I'd be more than happy to do that. But let's try and do this. I'll go to Schema. And you can set it up like I did.
Ryan, one question about the master detail. You showed the example of, I think it's accounts to contacts, right? And so, sorry, that was accounts to contacts was a lookup relationship, correct?
It is.
Right. So we can't have a roll up summary then in that case, right?
Well, there is so in your mind, I don't want you to think this, right? I'm teaching you to where the little one-off situations aren't necessarily that helpful right now, but let me show you a one-off here. So if you look at accounts and ops, what kind of relationship is there between these two?
Many. Oh, so that was going to be, is that going to be a lookup relationship?
That's a lookup relationship here. So according to our rules, should I be able to put a roll-up summary on the account object?
No.
You should not. And for all other cases, that is the case, right? So for all other lookup relationships that you see, you will not be able to do this. But for whatever reason, I think it's because the account object is very old as far as the evolution of the Salesforce tool. They built roll-up summary into this relationship. So you actually can do this.
I mean, because that makes sense too. That's a key criteria, I think, on the account to see how many opportunities you have, right?
Right. Or taking the amount field and totaling it, right? So in this case, it will work, but in every other case, it will not.
Okay. So whenever you're dealing with object, the account object as the parent, all bets are off as far as the rules that apply.
Not all bets are off.
Okay.
It's only certain objects that it'll do. I don't think contacts does it. Right. So if I tried to
count how many contacts you have on an account, it wouldn't work.
Yeah. If I want to see this way, see, only to ops.
Okay.
I can't do it with accounts.
Okay.
It's just the weird one-off situation. They will not test you on this. So don't get lost in the minutia here. But if you do see that, at least you've seen it once.
Right. Right. You know, it's a common use case as far as accounts to opportunities, and that's why I asked the question as far as having a roll-up summary in that scenario.
Right. Well, I think what happened there is they built that functionality before roll-up summary was a thing. I don't know that for a fact.
Right. Well, that makes sense.
So if everybody could build this thing, it shouldn't take you 100 hours at this point. If you were in last week's class, if not, it probably will be a little painful because you didn't get the muscle memory there. But you should pretty easily be able to create some objects and relationships at this point. If not, we need to walk through it. Anybody need help? You have to do your tabs. You would have to do your relationship fields, your page layouts. Now, I mean, we could take a cross object formula. So I could have region and zone pick lists. And I could do the same thing, region/zone with that formula field, cross object formula. I could do the same thing here. I can also aggregate from the detail back to the master in the other direction. That would be with our roll-up summary fields. So the interesting thing about this many-to-many with a junction object, what happens when I delete the master record?
Child. The junction object records are tied to it, so I'm going to delete those as well.
It will delete those records even if they are parented by another master. The cascading delete works in both directions, regardless of whether it's mastered by something else. So what you end up with is administrators and developers that don't know what they're doing, creating this situation, and then unknowingly, what happens?
They look for the records that were part of the master object 2 and can't find them as far as the...
Yeah, a master record gets deleted
Mhm.
on either side of the junction.
Right.
What happens to the detail?
They're gone.
It's gone. So now we have data loss,
Yeah.
and they don't even know it's happening.
Right.
So if you walk into an org and you see a bunch of master detail relationships in play, odds are somebody did not know what they was doing. Because if you look, if I hit select all and I back off of this and you look, you'll be hard pressed to find one. The vast majority of all of these end up being lookups for that reason. So there's only, like, I mean, look, this is standard functionality. You don't see them overusing that at all, do you? So I'll go ahead and demo this real quick. If you don't want to do it now, that's fine. You can do it later. But I would recommend building this once if you haven't already. It gives you some good muscle memory.
And then what's your take, Ryan, as far as seeing a bunch of child orphan records too? I mean, is there a good use case as far as why that would happen?
Yeah, it happens all the time.
No, but should it?
Should it? I mean, maybe it should, maybe it shouldn't. That would depend on the business process, right? But all an orphan record means is that the lookup field is left blank. See what I mean?
Yeah, I just don't really understand why you would want an orphan child record without its parent.
Well, maybe you're not to that point in the process yet where it's parented.
That's true. Right. If you have children without a parent identified, sure. I'm just thinking about the other way around where, you delete the parent and didn't clean up the children because you didn't know what to do.
Well, it's better to have the record exist than not in that situation.
Right.
Because it's much easier to go back and change a lookup to a master detail than vice versa. So if you're in a situation where you created a lookup relationship and you're like, man, there's a bunch of these orphan records and we don't need them, what are you going to do?
Right.
Make a master detail instead.
Mm-hmm.
But if you are in a situation where you're in a master detail and you have to back out into a lookup and there's actual data in the column, then you got all kinds of problems. It causes reporting issues. I mean, it's a nightmare. So the rule of thumb is don't use master detail unless you are absolutely sure you want one. You've got to know the differences. Cascading delete and roll-up summary are the only two reasons to use them. So then the question was asked, let me show you this functionality real quick. So if I go to master record 1 here, and you remember we had that junction object, I have it related to both. So if I delete the master, the junction object record will be deleted as well, even though I have a master. It is also gone. So this is called a many-to-many with a junction object. Questions there? So how does this equate to reality? We kind of see the physics of the relationships. Now let's talk about a little bit of case study, because now it makes sense to. Let me find my project. All right, so the first thing we did is we did what?
Define the business process.
And what is that?
It's the sales process.
Which is physically what?
The stage.
The stage pick list. But we already had a process in place, didn't we? We already had one type of product and service that was for fossil fuels. This one is going to be for renewable energy. So we had to create those stages in our stage pick list. We reordered them and all that, if you remember correctly. And then we created our business process. But really, what are we doing here? We're creating what?
Series of stages.
Well, isn't it record types?
Yeah.
I mean, we said, if you're thinking about a record type, what were the key points? Two is,
Business process.
what's the business process?
Sales process. The
That's our stage pick list. So we added the fields, got our business process together. Then what?
Profile, or is it record type?
We got our record types next, right? For the op in this case, how many did we have? 1 and 2, fossil fuels and renewable energy. And then as part of step 3, we assign them to the proper profile in the record type settings by not hitting edit on their profile. So I think we created those, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then there is a map here that I've given you, and I'm sure everybody here could probably easily use this model to build this if you had some time to do it. Let me show you how I would build this if I didn't have a model already scoped out here. So if I go into schema, so I'm pulling away from all of our variables here. Let's think about what we're going to need for our project that we're working on for the renewable energy side. Well, we're going to need companies, right? So we track companies with the account object. And we're going to need people that work at companies. Those are going to be contacts. And that's 1,000,000 miles away. There we go. Then we have opportunities, which is where our sales processes are housed. And then if you remember correctly, I got everything to record type for my main objects. So we had one for I think 2 for accounts. We had competitors and customers. We had 1 for contacts because we didn't need another. And then we had our opportunity, which has 1 was fossil fuels and 1 was renewable energy. So for our renewable energy side, where's our business process housed currently?
The stage.
Mm-hmm. So we're good on that. All right, so if we think about our business process, how do we want to track this stuff? We have to understand not just the values of the process, but what each of those values actually means. So what does open mean?
Potential client.
Well, it means that it's the opportunity has been created, but nobody's looked at it yet. It's a way of us saying, hey, this is one that no one has even modified it yet or anything. So open was that. What's the assessment? What are we doing?
Looking at what the customer currently has.
We're going in and taking measurements, what we would call an energy audit of what they currently have in place at their facility. Counting, and how do you think we like to show that as far as values.
If you look at the revenue and the size of the company,
Well, I mean, what
At that point,
What
are we
unit-
already in there? I mean,
what unit of measure are we going to use for this?
for the what are you asking for the assessment itself?
Yeah.
Whether or not the
The dollar
deal
amount?
qualified or not?
Isn't it dollars?
Oh,
Dollars, yeah.
Probably kilowatt hours to start,
hmm.
or BTUs if it was natural gas, right? But let's say we're doing electrical, so it's kilowatt hours. But really, what I want to show there is cost, right? How much does it cost currently in dollars per year, for instance? Then we have our proposal. What are we going to need to do at the assessment side? Think about physically, what do we need to do on the assessment? First of all, where do you want it to show up in platform for your users? Where are they going to search? If you're Joe user, Joe employee, and you want to look up an opportunity, what are you going to search for?
Either the account name.
Probably go to the account record first. Then from where are you going to find ops as a user there?
Related list tied to
In
the
a
account.
related list, right? So where do we want the assessment to show up? Do we want it to show up on the account?
Mhm. I would say keep it on the opportunity, but
Yeah, you want it to be on the op, right?
right.
So you may not have created this yet. I created an object last class called assessment. Take a long way home here. Wow, that's like super far away. Just rearrange. So assessment, ops, accounts, contacts. Right? And where did we say we wanted this assessment to show up? See how I created an object here? Why didn't I just put the assessment information on the op?
Maybe you have more than one assessment tied to the opportunity.
Very good. Very good. What if we need more than one assessment? Where did I say I wanted it to show up? On the op. In the form of what?
Dollar amount.
Well, that's we want to show on here when we're said and done their cost for existing, right? But I want this to be a related list, don't I?
Mm-hmm.
So how do I create a related list?
We do a lookup.
Well, do you want lookup or do you want master detail? See what I mean? So the question you need to ask yourself is, if the opportunity record is deleted, do I want assessments to be orphaned?
Versus being deleted as well, you're asking,
Mhm.
right?
Correct.
I think the assessment is still valuable.
It is?
If we go to that customer again and create a new opportunity and you've already done some of the, well, I guess it's going to be a new assessment in that case as well.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't know what to do, what are you going to do?
If I don't know, I would leave it.
Well, no, if you don't know, just do a lookup. If you don't know, you need a related list, do the safer of the two, right?
Right.
Go
That's
ahead
what
and
I'm
create a
saying.
lookup.
Right. Because
What I'm saying is you probably don't want
Mhm.
the assessment to exist if the opportunity is deleted. Probably. If you want to keep it, which relationship are you going to use?
Lookup relationship.
if you want it cascading delete, which one are you going to use?
Master detail.
Let's see what I have in the book. Master detail. See it?
Yeah, you don't want it.
So how would I create it? Master detail, it means one to many. Where's the field go? Field goes on the child of the detail in both situations. It's going to be our related list. I'm going to call it opportunity name. The field itself, and we're going to look back up to the op. See it? Now, if we think about the assessment, what is it that we are really doing here? Think about logistically what we would need to do to complete an assessment. Think about it really granularly. The opportunity gets created. Okay, we have a potential solar job at XYZ. The salesperson is going to do what at that point? It comes in an open.
I think he's going to look at, see what the customer is currently paying.
Well, but in order to do that, he's going to have to do what?
Create the assessment record.
Yeah, but
Run a
he's just
report.
going to go out there anytime he wants.
No, set an appointment.
Isn't it an appointment?
Yeah.
So in that case, to me, that is a business process, isn't it?
Sure.
So if I have a secondary business process here on the assessment, I'll go ahead and do it now because I know that I have to do what? I have to schedule it. So what is a business process? What is a business process? Let me help.
It's a series of events that, go from A task to B task.
Yes. In Salesforce, how do we show those? Think about the sales process. Where's the sales process housed?
In the lead and opportunity objects.
Well, the sales process is not on the lead object. It's only on the op. What field houses the sales process on the op? Let me go to an op record. Where is the path coming from? It's a stage pick list, right?
Yes, I was thinking record type, but you're right, it's stage.
It's the stage pick list, yes?
Yes.
So a business process in Salesforce is always what? It's always a stage or status pick list. Always, no matter what. It's either stage or status on standard or custom objects. It's the same thing. It's zero different. So what data type is the stage pick list?
It is a record type.
Nope.
Text.
It's a pick list.
Oh.
right? So I'm going to call this status. And we're going to have right? See what I have in the book so I don't confuse anybody. You'll see up here, the assessment process is what?
Status pick list.
It's our pick list on the assessment record that's going to allow us to do what? What's the desired outcome?
To define the business process.
And that process, what's the desired outcome for the assessment?
Close one.
Well, complete it. We want to schedule it, and then we want to complete it. Use first value as default there. Okay. So in our process, what happens on the sales process? What happens after the assessment? What's the next stage? Stage. Proposal. We could manage this in Salesforce, right? I could, using Conga Composer, which is a third-party application, products and price books, we could create a proposal that shows potential energy savings over time. So we could take what they gave us during the assessment, apply products and services using our opportunity products and price books, and we could generate a proposal based on the information that we've entered. We're not going to do that in this class because it would take a while. We would have to purchase Conga Composer. You couldn't necessarily do this right out of the box necessarily. Maybe, but you'd be better off using something like Conga for that. We could also manage the upgrade. But what is the proposal really? What do we want to show on our proposal?
That our way of doing things is better, faster,
How?
cheaper.
There you go. What's the unit of measure?
Dollars.
Dollars, right? So we want to be able to show energy savings over time with the most savings as possible. Some stuff that you would want to do to quote unquote juice this number, because if we just use today's value of everything and it takes 25 years for the material to go bad, we're going to miss some things there. We want to add exponential growth curves to the number if we can, because as we all know, exponential growth gives much greater values over time, which is what we want. So I would say inflation of the dollar might be something that you add on this, the standard 4%. Who knows what it'll be from here on out. Another thing we could say is the rising cost of utilities over time and add another percentage on that in order to get the highest number of savings over the lifespan of the material. And you would really need to do that in order to make this a saleable thing. Unfortunately, renewable energy takes a lot of time, especially solar. It takes a huge amount of time to pay itself off with energy savings. You really want to do everything else first. Tighten everything else down. Make sure you have proper insulation and air sealing in the facility. Make sure that you have all of the low-hanging fruit, LED light bulbs, for instance, getting rid of high-intensity discharge lighting. Make sure that your equipment is high-efficiency equipment. All of this is going to show way more return than solar would. But if you have all of that together, if you do it all and then add solar at the end, it makes a lot of sense. But it will take like 25 years to pay off that solar implementation. So you really want to show huge amounts of energy savings over time because it does take so long to pay those off. We could at the next stage, so that's our decision, isn't it? We give them the proposal. What happens if they say no?
And you mark it as close lost.
Close lost, on to the next one. Maybe they want to do our high efficiency rig instead. do a natural gas setup, 95% efficient or something.
Or maybe, I guess maybe another way that you could do it is you could find out what they're exactly they're saying no to and see if you have any alternatives that might better suit their needs.
That exactly, most definitely. Just because they're not burning dinosaurs doesn't mean, just because they're burning dinosaurs doesn't mean that they're not energy efficient, right? So the all or nothing attitude when it comes to renewable energy is a little sad. There's no way that we're going to create enough solar panels to feed the need of our civilization. Never going to happen. But we can utilize the resources that we have and use renewable when it makes the most sense. So to demonize it or to make it the savior, it isn't either. It's just another way to meet the energy requirements of a company. Sometimes it's marketing related. They want to look green. Okay, great. Look green. Let's do it. But, you know, this is stuff that you have to teach people. And this business process would be designed to do that. We would really be informing the potential client on what's available, and hopefully they make the right decision. If not, we can go back to fossil fuels and do something that's also very efficient. We'll save them money, but isn't necessarily just solar. All of those things would be, because then you're really a solution expert at that point. You're not just selling boxes. You're selling a proposed solution that really meets their requirement one way or the other. Just giving them the information they need. That's the value of a business model like this. We could manage the upgrade. If they say yes, we would switch it to upgrade. And at that point, we would truly manage the upgrade. So another good example of master detail would be, we're not going to create this in our app. So we're going to phase 2 this and this. So we aren't going to build they're doing these manually currently, and we'll continue to do that until we have the process nailed down otherwise, and then we would come back and phase 2 these. Right? But one reason we might use a master detail relationship here is if we were working the upgrade here, we could have opportunity and then have a master detail relationship with another object called work item. That could be, you know, electrical work. It could be solar panel installation. It could be any number of things, right? If the opportunity is created, it's the proper record type. We could have a related list called work item, but we wouldn't want these floating around without the op. So if the op gets deleted, we would also want that work item record deleted, because it doesn't matter if the work items exist if there's no opportunity. This is the kind of stuff we could do on the upgrade side. And we could manage all that, but I want to show this as simply as possible. So after the upgrade is completed, what do we do next? What's quality assurance? What did we say that was?
You're double checking your work?
Yeah, we're doing the assessment again. So how are we going to manage that?
Through testing?
Well, how are we going to manage it in Salesforce, right? So where do I want it to exist? Think about the user experience here.
The stage on the opportunity record.
Well, we want it on the op in the form of a related list, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how would we do that? How do we do it for the assessment?
Create an object with,
Right? That's it. I'm doing exactly what you said. Just create an object. Check everything you can check and save. Then where do I want it to live? So right now I have the opportunity object that has a related list called assessment. Where do I want the QA object to live?
same thing, no?
Exactly the same thing. So how do I put a related list on an object?
So One to many?
Well, yeah, we need a one-to-many relationship. Which one do I want here?
From opportunity to quality assurance?
Which type, master detail or lookup?
Look up.
I could. What's the question to ask yourself?
Cascade or Russ.
Do I want quality assurances to exist if an opportunity is deleted?
I would say yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like the assessment, isn't it? I don't want QAs sitting around if the op record doesn't exist. If I wasn't sure, I'd just go ahead and do a lookup. Let's see what I did in the book so I don't confuse anybody here. So the op has a master detail that looks up to the op. So once again, that's a master detail relationship. So where's the field go?
Just go under the quality assurance,
And then what are we looking up to?
looking up to opportunity.
Good. So Doc, I feel like you're starting to get it.
I've been studying every day.
You've been studying every day?
Every day, yeah.
It helps, doesn't it?
It does.
There we go.
Plus, I've been YouTubing too.
Good.
Doing homework at the site too. Yeah.
It's amazing how if you do your due diligence,
Mhm.
you get quality results. It's a good deal.
My sister started off as a Salesforce admin. Now she's an architect and she's making over 200.
Nice.
Yeah. So
Yeah, that's nice. Technical architect or solution?
technical.
Oh, is she actually a certified technical architect?
She has been taking a lot of certification during this quarantine.
Cool.
Yeah. So I don't know exactly what certification. She took a bunch of them already and passed all of them.
Awesome.
Mhm.
That means she's a good test taker.
Definitely. Yeah.
Can she build an app?
Yes.
That's the more important thing, right?
Yeah.
That's the complete litmus test right there, regardless of all the exams. Can you
Yes.
build an app, and also can you demonstrate it when necessary?
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, frankly, I could cheat and have every cert they have right now.
Hmm.
Yeah, I could totally do that. I mean, you could too. You could totally cheat and have, when I see somebody with like 26 certs,
Mhm.
you know, I mean, it's like good for you, but at the same time, I'm like, how many certs do you really need to be effective? Does anybody know the answer to that?
Truly, the answer is 0.
0. Zilch. You know how many people have a bunch of certs and can't do squat?
Hmm.
Because they did what I just said. They memorized a bunch of test questions.
That's
But-
always been my argument. So if I have somebody who has, like the example you has of 26 certs, and I would pick one. Okay, you just pick one at random and then demonstrate this in that cert.
There's only one thing I need to demo. Do you know what it is?
FEMA?
Security.
Oh, security.
If you cannot demo security, I don't care how many certs you have, I can't help you. Because it's everything. Has there been a point where we haven't used security in this entire class? I mean, it's the entire class. It just goes on and on. It's only like 12 or 14% of the overall admin exam, so people skip it because, as you know, it's hard to grasp, and they don't teach it properly. They don't show you the difference between access and permission. So if you don't see that, what happens is you end up with one major weakness. I'm sure somebody in this crew here had that issue. They just didn't understand record types. They just didn't understand one of the pieces. And as you can see, that makes the whole thing fall apart. All right, so I have my opportunity record. There's an assessment. We do the proposal based on products and services. That gives them a proposal that is the decision point where we show energy savings over time. They say yes or no. If they say yes, we go to the upgrade, complete the upgrade, meaning we go out with our products and services, create the solution. And then what we're going to do that nobody else does is we're going to do a QA test on it, a quality assurance assessment. We're going to redo that first assessment, and we're going to ensure that the numbers that you're actually getting are what we proposed to a minimum standard of quality. It's not going to be exact, right? But we need to get within plus or minus 5% or something. So that's the value add. Not only are we going to sell it to you, we're going to install it for you, and then we're going to ensure that what we did worked. How do you think we want to show that? So think about this. What are we going to get here? Well, actually, I forgot to mention, is there a business process on the QA?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. What are we going to call it?
Stage checklist,
Status?
status.
Stage I saved just for ops.
Okay.
And I think pretty much everybody else does. You don't call it stage because that's a very specific process in Salesforce, and that opportunity process is everything. So just use status. And lots of people like to write assessment status and quality assurance status, and they like to get really, really granular. But what I'll tell you is there's a limit to the number of characters that you can have in mobile. So if you have a really long, drawn out field label, they're only going to see the first, I don't know what the limit is, but they're only going to see the first few. So if you have like assessment status, they're not going to see the status part in mobile. So be very careful about naming conventions of fields. Don't get too flowery and descriptive. Keep it short, sweet, to the point with mobile in mind. So where's the field go in this case? It's our business process for which object?
For the
QA, right?
one.
Which is going to be the exact same values as the assessment. First value is default because it's a process. I don't want no value. I want it to start out in that open value. Okay. So I have our sales process, which is the stage pick list. There's a status on the assessment, which is scheduling and completing the assessment itself. And then I have another one on the QA, which is the same thing as the assessment.
Mm-hmm.
So what do we want to show when this is all said and done?
Show the result, how it's profitable.
So this one we had, call it like existing cost. And then after we could call it so we have existing costs. Let's say it was $100. And then installed cost after we completed our products and services, let's say it's 75. So then what do we need to show when this is all said and done?
Savings.
Savings, right? I need to show energy savings. What do you think that all of these are as far as unit of measure? Dollars, right? So we've got existing cost minus installed cost. That gives us energy savings. But where are we going to see that? How are we going to do that calculation?
Create another object.
We could. Now, this is where that many-to-many with a junction object is going to play.
Summary.
Well, let's look at...
Or can you create a formula?
That's what we're going to do.
Okay.
So here's what it looks like when we're all ready to go here. We're going to create a new object called saving summary. And it's going to have a master detail relationship where it's the detail for quality assurance. And then also there's going to be one where the assessment is the master. So it's going to have the saving summary is going to be the detail. Do you see the junction object?
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you didn't know what it was, you wouldn't see it. You see what I mean? It's getting so hairy here that if you start creating a bunch of these bad boys, it can create that cascading delete problem. So you have to be very cognizant of what's happening. But for this one, I'm going to create another object. And I'm just going to select the objects element, drag it over, and I'm going to call it saving summary. And what we want here is our many-to-many with a junction object where the assessment is a master and QA is a master. So for this one, I'm just going to get rid of ops so that we don't see the hairiness there. So for a many-to-many with a junction object, how would I create this? Where do the fields go?
Fields will go under QA, no?
Well, I've got two masters, right?
Mm-hmm.
Master 1 and master 2. And then I have a master detail relationship going this way, right? And a master detail relationship going this way. This would be my detail. So where are the fields going to go?
Under the detail?
Yeah, on the saving summary. So I'm going to create two master detail relationship data types. Goes on the detail. The first one's going to look up to assessment. I'm going to call it assessment name. Looking up to the assessment. And save. There's my first one. Now I want the second one, master detail relationship data type, only this time we're looking up to the QA. Whoa. That was weird. So I'll grab my master detail relationship data type, drag it onto the saving summary, and it's going to look up to QA. So I'm going to call it quality assurance name, relate it back to QA. Save. There's my many-to-many with a junction. Now the problem is going to be that I don't have it on the op. I'm going to want it on the opportunity record. So if I want to put saving summary on the op record as a related list, what do I need?
Create relationship between
Need a relationship. Which type?
one-to-many? No.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do I want cascading delete?
Yeah.
You do, but here would be my point. The saving summary is going to show up when in our process.
After these transactions, right?
It's at the very end after the QA, right?
Yeah.
So according to this configuration, if The opportunity gets deleted. What happens to the assessment?
That gets deleted.
And then because there's a master detail between the assessment and the savings summary, what happens?
They all get deleted?
Yeah, do you see how it cascades down the line? So I don't really need one here. I can use a lookup. All I'm trying to do is to put it in the related lists on that op record type, the renewable energy one. So for this one, I would just put our lookup relationship field on the savings summary, have it look up to the op.
Lookup just allow two objects to get connected rather than deleted completely, right?
Well, it doesn't have cascading delete. It allows for records to be orphaned.
Oh, okay.
They'll be independent owners.
I want to keep the number of master detail relationships to a minimum,
Okay.
just as a general rule. So all that last one did for me is put savings summary in my related lists for that page layout. The cascading delete will already happen if any of the other stuff gets deleted, right? If the op gets deleted, everything's gone. If the assessment gets deleted, the summary's gone. If the QA gets deleted, the summary's gone.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
See? So if I look at the book, it might be a little harder to see because I've got it all on one page here, but you can see all that. Notice the op has a lookup relationship to savings summary, but we do have our many-to-many with a junction here. Now, the other objects that are listed were already there. One that's always important to note is the user object. It's really hairy, so I always remove it. But it's always there. There's at least 3 fields on every single object that look up to user, created by, last modified by, an owner. So it's in every application, no matter what. So I'm going to go ahead and pull it up here. Oh, good Lord. I'm going to have to move all this around. Wonders of schema. Okay. So here's my user record. Note that each one has at least 3 lookups to user. The master detail relationship, you only see 2 because there's no owner field. But as of right now, I've created all my objects. I created my business processes, and we created our relationships, yes, that actually tie these things together. So now let's think about some of the other fields that we made. Well, on the assessment, who's going to do the assessment? Someone internal or external?
External.
Internal.
External.
Internal.
Internal, yeah.
We're going to have somebody go out and do the assessment, right?
Hmm.
So if I want a field on the assessment called interviewer, or I'm sorry, not interviewer, I'm thinking about a different class. If I'm going to create a lookup relationship here called assessor that looks up to the user object, it's just another lookup, right? So check this out. I'll find my lookup relationship data type. I'm going to drag it on assessment, and I'm going to call it assessor. And that just looks up to our user object. And then I'm going to do the same thing with QA. And I'm going to call that inspector. So you've got assessor on the assessment and inspector on QA. I'm just going to grab that lookup relationship data type again, drop it onto QA, and I'm going to call it inspector. And we're going to look up to the user object. We're just tagging that record with the user that's going to do the inspection, Joe or myself, either for the assessment or the QA.
These relationships, we're doing this for the related lists, right? That's the reason why we're having these relationships.
Well, in this case, what we're going to end up seeing is on the record, if this is my detail record for the assessment,
Yeah.
usually it's about related lists. In this case, it isn't necessarily, because the related list would be on the user record, which we don't really care about the user record on our app itself as a user. What it's going to have is a field that has the little magnifying glass next to it. And we're going to tag that. So we're going to have the status, which is our open, scheduled, and completed pick list. And then there's going to be the name and then the opportunity. See them here? The opportunity name that looks up to the op record. And then this one, we're actually going to tag this with Joe or ourselves. That way we're just tagging that one detail record who was going to do the assessment. Same thing here, only it's inspector. And if we look at the book, we have some stuff here. Counts, contacts, and ops, which we've kind of discussed. We had the customer and competitor record types here on the account object. At this point, I'm just going through the record types, which we have already done in class. We created a record type for every object. And then these were the fields that I added to the page layouts. Then we had our custom objects with the definitions here. Then we need to get all of them to record type eventually. But first, before I do that, I may as well create all of the fields. So here on page, whatever this is, what page is this? Does it not have pages? Right here, where it has our custom object fields, we can work from this and recreate this in our app. So let's look on the assessment side in the book here. We have the name. We just created assessor. See it? Now we need cost per kilowatt hour. What's a kilowatt hour? Well, actually, we need date time. We didn't create that yet. Because what is our process? Isn't it the whole thing is scheduling the thing, really? So let's create a date time field and call it date time. So we'll do the same thing for assessment that I do for QA. They're the same thing, just two different points in our process. So I'm going to create a date time data type on the assessment and the QA. Just call it date time. Thinking for mobile. And then the same thing down here for QA. Easy peasy. Then going back to the book. So it needs to be scheduled. We have our status pick list, which is our business process. We have the assessor who's going to do the assessment. Now, does anybody know what a kilowatt hour is?
That's the way electricity gets measured, right?
It's a way of measuring electricity, and kilowatt hours are usually what we multiply the dollars against. So in the state of Ohio, for a residential structure, you're talking about 14 cents a kilowatt hour. It's the amount of electrical energy, the amount of watts, which is a power unit of measure. Kilowatts means 1,000 watts. Kilowatt hours means the amount of energy created at 1 kilowatt for an entire hour. So what we'll do is we'll take our cost, for our case, in a commercial structure, you're talking about 9 cents a kilowatt hour, but we're going to need a currency field data type. And we're going to need one on assessment and one on QA, the exact same thing, because in some states or parts of the country, you will get incentives based on cost per kilowatt hour if you're doing renewable energy. So where it might cost 9 cents for your standard kilowatt hour in a commercial structure, if you're generating solar, you might get it for 7 cents a kilowatt hour or something. So we need to have 2 currency field data types. You'll see them here. I have 16 and 2 as the characters. So I'm going to go back. I'm going to create 2 currency data types, one on assessment and one on QA.
The QA is because we're testing the generators, or what's the QA for?
The QA is to ensure that we installed the equipment to where it gave an energy savings over time that gets close to matching what we proposed.
Oh, I see. Okay.
You see how this really points out you have to understand what a business process is. And not only what it is, but their particular one. You got to know enough about what they do to help them build the right solution.
Yeah.
You got to become an expert of many things, not just Salesforce, but you got to be able to listen and figure out what it is that they're doing and help them walk through the process. Because if not, you're just crushing requirements. Same thing over here, currency, cost per kilowatt hour. $16.2. So there we go. We've got our cost per kilowatt each hour for each one. Then I'm going to go back and look at the book. So we've got cost per kilowatt hour, and then we've got kilowatt hours per year down here. I'm going to need one for assessment and one for QA. They're both number 16.2. So I'm going to go back into schema, grab my number data type, drop it on. It's called kilowatt hours per year. Same thing for QA. Number data type. Why do you think I need this? What am I going to do with this?
You'll compare and show the savings over time.
So calculation, right?
Right.
So then we have what we're calling cost. What do you think the formula for cost is going to be?
Kilowatt hour times rate per kilowatt, maybe.
So kilowatt hours times kilowatt hours per year. What's our data type going to be?
Currency, right?
Currency. It's going to be in dollars, isn't it?
Yeah.
So on the assessment side, which data type?
Currency.
Nope, that's the return type. It's a formula data type. I'm going to drop it on the assessment, and we're going to call it cost. Return type is currency, see? Now I'm going to create my formula here. We want the cost per kilowatt hour times kilowatt hours per year. Yes? And then we're going to do something similar on the QA side. Same thing, right? Only it's on the QA. We're going to call it cost. So formula data type on the QA, we'll call it cost. Is everybody seeing why I like schema? So we're going to take cost per kilowatt hour times kilowatt hours per year. Back up and peeking at things here. So coming back here and taking a look, we've done most of this. There is something called potential cost. So really what potential cost would end up being is the proposal. But since we're not managing that currently in phase one, I have this field called potential cost. So you're going to have your actual cost of existing. And then I'm going to toss in a potential cost if they decide to move forward. That's going to give me this potential savings number. It's just going to be a currency. I mean, really what this would be is getting everything up in the assessment, getting a number of kilowatt hours from each piece of equipment, counting all the light bulbs, everything you can find, every computer, every outlet, every light bulb. We're going to count all of it, and that's going to give us kilowatt hours. And then we would take, for the potential cost, we would go and say, all right, if we do this upgrade, here's what it would cost in energy if you decided to go with our proposal. And then there's a potential savings. So this potential savings is what we need to match up with on the QA as close as possible. So for cost, I just need one field called potential cost. It's a currency field 16.2. That goes on the assessment. Currency. And then potential cost. And then from that, I am able to do potential savings, which is a formula on the assessment. That one looks like this. So we're going to take cost minus potential cost. That's going to give us potential savings. Which data type is this?
What was the question, Ryan? You broke up a little bit.
Oh, I'm sorry. I said, so I'm going to take the cost minus the potential cost. What data type is this?
Number, isn't it?
This is a
It's a
formula, right?
It's a formula, right?
Oh,
Which object does it go on? It's on the assessment, right?
on the assessment object.
And this is going to be called potential savings. Currency. 2 places. We're going to take the cost minus potential cost. That'll return in dollars. Very good. Get back up here and peek. Now, I'm not going to have record types. What do I got to do to get this record type field? It's not going to be there for us now if we look. See? What did I say about record type?
Can't do it from schema.
Well, can't do it from schema. You can do part of it from schema. But what did I say about it? Don't I like to get every object to record type?
Yes.
So what are the key points of record types?
Have at least one.
Well, step one is
You need a process.
page layout. 2 is business process, but we're not going to need them here because these are custom objects, so they can just be managed on the record type. They're just another pick list. Record type and profile. So I could go ahead and do that right now, but it doesn't make any sense to. I'm going to configure everything I can configure in schema and then go back and do the page layout as the last step, right? So my page layouts and record types will be last. So I guess what I'm saying is I'm going to go ahead and wait on those. But I will need a record type for each one. Now I'll go back and look at what fields we have on the QA. I think we have most of these. We got to get it to record type, which we haven't yet. We'll do that at the end. But that one's finished. Then finally, we have savings summary. We'd have to get it to record type. I'm going to do that last. So now we have yearly energy savings, years of use, and total energy savings. So how do you think we're going to get yearly energy savings?
Monthly times 12.
So you're going to take the yearly energy savings, which is assessment cost minus QA cost. See him?
Mm.
And then we're also going to need a number field called years of use, because that's how we're going to get total energy savings. We're going to take that yearly number and use it times the years of use to get our outcome there. So we need yearly energy savings first. What formula? Or it's the formula data type. This one is going on our savings summary object. So I've got my formula data type. Yearly energy savings. And I think I'll stop after this. Currency 2. So we're going to take the assessment. Oh, wait. What are my limitations of schema?
Fields.
I can create. What do I need to create if I do it in schema?
Tabs. Page layout. Fields.
Field level security and
COF.
I can't do cross-object formulas in schema, which is what I was trying to do. So it won't let you go cross-object. I'm trying to take this field use a cross-object formula to pull it down here, where the formula itself is going to take the assessment cost minus the QA cost. See that? I can't do it in schema. So I have to do it through the setup tree. I have to do it through the object manager. So I'm going to go to my savings summary object and create a new field in the object manager because I can't go cross object in schema. So I'm going to create a new field by going to fields and relationships under savings summary. I'll select new, and it's going to be a formula data type. And I think it's called yearly energy savings, right? And then we're going to have a currency return type. So this one is going to be we're going to take the assessment cross object. You know you can go cross object when you see these little carrots. This is the field on the savings summary called assessment. That's the actual lookup field. This is going to pop me over into the assessment object. This is cross object formula right here.
Mm.
So I'm going to take the cost of the assessment, insert it, and then subtract the cost, but this time I want the QA. See how I'll go cross object here? And we want the cost on the QA. Did I not create it? Pretty sure I did. Maybe I didn't.
This is under opportunity name. That's what you have.
Oh, I've got it under the op in the wrong place.
Yeah.
It needs to be on the QA. There we go. Cost. So there's your simple formula there. This is a cross object formula. I'm pulling from the assessment and the QA, and they're both going to show up in savings summary. But this is yearly energy savings. What do we really want to show? We want to show it over the lifespan of the material. This is field level security because I did it in the object manager. Formula fields are always read only. And then it will automatically add it to my page layout if I wish, which is fine. Also going to need another field called years of use. This is going to be, I'll just go ahead and do this in object manager since I'm here. I could totally do this in schema as well, but I'm going to choose a number and it's going to be called years of use. This is all in the book, by the way. I just leave it 18, I guess. It doesn't really need decimal places. Field level security, page layout. And that's going to give us the ability to create our total energy savings, which is another formula field on the savings summary object. We'll create a formula data type. And this is going to be total energy savings. And this is where we'll start on Thursday. We'll start with total energy savings. I'll go ahead and finish it up the next class. But total energy savings is going to look like this. So we're going to take yearly savings times the years of use, and that's going to be our total savings. So homework between now and Thursday is going to be to do what I've done. Get to this point. Create all of your fields if you can. We'll do total energy savings together. If you want to try it, knock yourself out. The next piece of this, after we get all of our fields created, what would you do next? So let's think about, go back to schema, look at it in schema. Once we have all of our, so the first thing we did was we figured out our business process. Then we created all of our objects, right?
Yeah.
We had our standard objects, got everything to record type. Then we threw down our custom objects here. Then after we threw down our custom objects, what did we do? Well, we created our tabs, right? Limitations of schema. So what would you do next?
Page layouts.
Yes, right?
Yes.
Now I can go through, I've already got my standard page layouts all the way to record type. So the thought process next will be, let's get all of our other objects all the way to record type. We'll do page layout. Business process is already going to be handled. Create our record types and make sure they're assigned to the proper profiles. Are we going to need a new profile for this? That's a good question, isn't it? The question would be, is your salesperson going to sell both? Fossil fuels and renewable? If so, probably don't need another profile. if they're only going to sell one product or the other, maybe you would create another profile.
The page layouts are going to be for each object, right?
Well, for each record type, aren't they really?
For each record type. Okay.
I mean, it is for each object. Each object is going to have at least one record type, but we have 2 for ops. Yep. 2 for accounts as well, right?
Right.
So that's where we'll start on Thursday. I will do much better about getting things uploaded. I was a little bit busy this past week, so I do apologize. But the other classes are up on the YouTube channel. So if you want to catch up on maybe your master detail relationship stuff, maybe you don't need to because today just helped. But homework for Thursday will be, let's get to this point right here. You don't have to go all the way to record type. Just get all your fields created. And from there, we will continue. It's all downhill from here, everybody. It gets much easier after this. So thanks for sticking with us.
Thank you.
Everybody good?
I do have a question, Ryan. Now, you had mentioned if your employee is going to be doing both parts of the business, then you probably would not need to create a different profile. But let's say that you had 2 employees, one who was new and just to kind of have this new person get ramped up to speed. They're only going to do one part of the business, and then you had a more seasoned person like Joe who was going to do both. How would you separate the 2?
Okay. Think about our plunge. How many profiles would you need here?
Well, I would say that you'd probably need maybe 1 profile, but then give Joe, since he's the more experienced employee, than Sally, who's the newer person.
Yeah, Joe is going to have custom sales profile plus the renewable energy permission set on his user record, right? Access and permission.
Okay.
And then Sally is just going to have the custom sales profile. See it?
I see. Okay.
So Joe is further along in the plunge. He got hired on, or he came in from a previous iteration of himself here, right? Something happened out here. They did a rollout, and Joe starts out with this very restricted profile, but somewhere through the plunge, we decided he's also going to sell the RE stuff. So we add a renewable energy permission set to his user detail record and make sure he has the record types that he needs in order to see those. Where Sally, she's going to come in here somewhere and she would not have this yet. We would wait until she needed it, maybe up here somewhere.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so I got a hard stop at 4, everybody. I'll see y'all on Thursday. Thanks for your time and attention, and hopefully we'll see y'all back then.
Thank you.